Hi, it's Mohammed Amin Bilarbi from Morocco. And regarding the question concerning the Moroccan policy on the Western Sahara issue, well, I am a Moroccan and I think I'm qualified enough to speak about this specific question. I've been raised in Morocco and I've been in the Moroccan educational system for 17 years. And I can tell you that the Moroccan authorities have put up so much efforts in order to keep the Moroccan society unaware of the reality of the Western Sahara conflict. So, from the early stages of your education, the only thing you learn about the Western Sahara is that it is integral part of Morocco, and that Morocco recovered from the Spaniards in 1975 through the famous Green March. That's the story, and that's where it stops. Nothing is discussed beyond this certain point. And I believe it's like strategy from the government in order to keep the population politically ignorant of the conflict and prevent any social conscience to take over and to question the government's actions in the Western Sahara. Since 75 and even before, Morocco have been strongly supported by the Western countries and the Gulf countries as well. We know that the United States was one of the main providers of Morocco when it came to weaponry and technology in order to fight Polisario fighters in the Western Sahara, while the Gulf countries supported Morocco financially to build, for example, the wall, separating Western Sahara, splitting Western Sahara into two. So when you have such strong powers always supporting you, such as the West and the Gulf countries, then the least you have to worry about is any international resolution forcing you to leave the Western Sahara or to hold a referendum. So here Morocco we can see that it was the country was in a certain political stagnation, status quo somehow, which allowed it to continue its work or its colonization, if you want to say so, of the Western Sahara without really worrying about the international community perspective on the conflicts. Furthermore, Morocco has been working quite hard to give this impression that he is trying to promote a certain solution through, for example, the effort to establish a referendum. So Morocco has been committed to establish a referendum after 75, but has always found a way to stop it or to divert it through several means. For example, adding always new entries for the list of vouchers, which proved to be obsolete afterwards. So maybe it is a certain diplomatic way Morocco is trying to sustain this situation, or maybe it is only kind of dictated strategies by the West in order to keep their interests in the region. But still, we can always perceive that Morocco is kind of ignoring or neglecting the fact that the country needs to be resolved in the near future through a global or international unified stance on the necessity to resolve the conflict. Throughout from 1975 until 2000, early 2000s, we can see that Morocco has been flowing in a certain stagnating dynamism until the proposal of the autonomy plan, which was kind of seen as a breakthrough for the Moroccan political stance. The autonomy plan, though it sounds as a new compromise made by Morocco or concession from the government to allow a certain situation to emerge, it is still an undermining step of the efforts of the UN and of the international community to establish a certain referendum to allow the Sahrawis to vote on their fate. This autonomy, which doesn't include independence as an option, is totally contrary to the concept of self-determination, and thus cannot be taken into account when deciding upon the fate of the Western Saharan people. And what is just ironic in this whole case is coming back to 1975 and the Green March. Morocco explained or justified this Green March through the first paragraph of the ICG advisory opinion on the Western Sahara, which stated that yes, indeed, Morocco and the Western Saharan tribes had certain links of allegiance, religious, social, and economic ties which connected both the Sultan to the tribe elders. But what Morocco omitted to tell its people or its population is that this is not the whole story. The conclusion in the second paragraph comes to refute the claims of sovereignty, stating that even though these links were apparent between some tribe elders and the Sultan, these ties cannot amount to ties of sovereignty. Therefore, Morocco has no right to be in the Western Sahara and has the duty to establish a referendum in order to give the Saharan the opportunity to determine their fate. In conclusion, I would say that Morocco is kind of still leading this strategy of ignorance, trying to push people to be unaware of the real situation and trying to undermine the international law perspective when it comes to teaching students or teaching people about the Sahara conflicts, and always playing on this note of nationalism or excessive patriotism, which is in this case not in the benefit of Morocco in the long-term perspective. I believe this stance will have to change ultimately because of the change in global powers, because of the shifting of alliances, and this fast and dynamic world we live in. And the supporters of yesterday might prove to be the enemies of tomorrow. So Morocco shouldn't rely entirely on the reluctance of the international community to condemn its presence in the Western Sahara, but should rather try to promote a certain win-win situation, which will serve both the national struggle of the Sahrawis and the economic interests of Morocco in the Western Sahara.